It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us once again. Sue Rutherford is here, the Executive Director of the Trauma Intervention Program. Tipupaz.org is the website.
Yes.
Hi, Sue.
Hi there.
You're back.
Yes.
We were just talking before, just a second ago, that it's been a few years since you've been here. So your PSAs are always running about the Trauma Intervention Program, but it'd be good to have you come back in and kind of refresh everyone's memories because, you know, new people move in all the time, and I'm sure you're looking for new volunteers and
yes, we are.
all that good stuff. So let's start at the beginning. What is the Trauma Intervention Program?
Okay, what we are is we're a group of volunteers that are called out by the firefighters, the police officers, or the hospital personnel when there's been any type of crisis. Most often it's death related, but it can be anything. It can be a medical emergency, a structure fire, domestic violence, whatever, where they see that there is a need for us to be with either the victim or their family. And we then come in immediately. We're usually there within 20-30 minutes of being requested, and we stay with them for average couple hours to provide what we call emotional support and practical support. So to get them through the first horrific few hours of that crisis.
Yeah, that'd be a tough time for a lot of folks.
It is. It's probably sometimes the most difficult time of their life.
Yeah, shock, I would imagine, is going on right there. Let's go back even farther. How did the Trauma Intervention Program wind up here in Yavapai County?
Okay, well, it started over in the San Diego area in 1985 by a psychologist who saw the need of putting people out there immediately when a crisis had occurred. His thought was, it's kind of like when you have a heart attack and you can get to an adequate facility within an hour, you have a better chance of survival. So his thought is, if we could get people who have this horrific shock and you can get somebody to them within the hour, will they not then be sitting in his chair as a client for 20 years dealing with that crisis? Can we have somebody there with them so that it's not as horrible as it might have been? So they have an advocate, they have their liaison with them, they have somebody who can explain the system to them, they have somebody who knows what to say, what not to say, all of that. And then in 2000, it came over to the other side of the mountain, the Prescott Valley is actually what started over there, and I've been with it since day one over there. And then in 2006, we brought it to the Verde Valley area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so we have actually two branches then?
Yes, we have two chapters. Yeah, so we have volunteers on each side of the mountain. So when a call, that's what we call it, a call comes out, then whichever side of the mountain that a volunteer from that side goes to it.
Now, I've had you in before, and we've talked about this before, so I'm familiar with it, but I think one of the key things to probably bring up too is that people might be thinking, well, we've got firefighters, we've got law enforcement that are on scene, you know, why aren't they helping these folks out? But I mean, they've got
their job to do, yes, and we want them to do their job. And so it takes them away. If they're with the family, they can't concentrate and do their job. And I get this because I'm a retired nurse, so I worked through the 80s and 90s as a nurse, and even though we're caring people, every emergency, almost every emergency responder I've ever met, they're very caring people, but they have a job to do, and we want them to do that job. So our job as a volunteer is to free up the emergency responder to concentrate on their job and to make sure that our clients, which is what we call them, get what they need. And we can make sure that they're not being ignored or they are getting their needs met while the emergency responders do their job.
You know, TIP volunteers almost sound like first responder therapists. Is that fair to say?
I think so, even though we're not professionals.
Right.
We do have some professionals in our group, but when you're a TIP volunteer, you're a lay person. But it's like that. It's like having somebody there with you who has been trained to understand what you're going through,
Right.
and then can address what you need.
Because you had mentioned that psychologist was talking about how instead of 20 years of sitting in the chair in front of them, if we
Yeah.
get somebody out there that can help them deal with this crisis immediately and kind of guide them on the direction they need to go,
Correct.
it could fix that or
Yes,
help it.
because what can happen when a crisis occurs, if people are very sensitive when they're going through a crisis, and so they're being highly sensitive, and if their needs are not met, they get what we call a second injury. If somebody says the wrong thing to them, somebody doesn't address their need, that stays in what we call their memory tape, and then they can be very resentful of how it occurred, how it went down. So our goal is to make it more of a grateful experience, because we can't take away what happened to them, but we can try to make it a little more grateful that it went down the way they needed it to go.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Now you said you respond. Fire will call you. The police will call you. And you said the hospital even will call you
Yes.
sometimes too. Okay. I imagine there's maybe some people show up at the hospital all
Oh,
traumatized.
yes.
I would imagine
Oh,
very much
sure.
so.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
these are 3 agencies that usually have to deal with some kind of injury or something going on like that.
Yes.
How are you called upon?
Well, with the fire and the law enforcement that we contract with, which is almost all throughout Yavapai County, then they let their 911 dispatch know, and we have our own dispatchers in TIP. So we have TIP dispatchers who communicate with the 911 dispatch, and then our dispatchers send out the volunteers.
Okay, so the police and fire will tell their dispatchers we need a TIP
We
volunteer?
need a TIP volunteer out here. Yep.
Okay.
Some calls were automatically dispatched for, I called that, and that would be, it depends on the agency on how they have it set up, what they want us automatically called for. Though we never show up on a scene without being requested. So we might get I call it a dispatch from 911 when the fire engine's going out on a certain type of call. And then our TIP dispatcher gets the volunteer ready, and then they notify 911 and say, do you want somebody? Do you really need them? We've got them ready. And what we did that for is to help with our response time, because the sooner we can get there, the better for everybody. Yeah.
Are you being called out more or less? Kind of even? Since the last time you were here, which was at least a couple of years ago.
It's probably about the same. It fluctuates depending on the month and what's going on. The summer is more touristy, so we get, especially the Sedona area, you get a lot of out-of-town people staying at the resorts. Somebody has died or a medical emergency has occurred. So there's, we do that. The holiday time is always busy too. More suicides maybe, that kind of stuff.
All right. We're going to take our first break, okay?
Sure.
Trauma Intervention Program Executive Director Sue Rutherford in studio today. Their website is tipofaz.org. This is Countywide, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
I was there when the doctor pronounced a mother dead.
I was there for a grieving spouse when her husband died.
I was there for school when a student died.
I was there when a mother kissed her son goodbye for the last time.
I was there for a citizen in crisis.
I was there when no one else was.
When we have citizens in crisis, we always call a TIP volunteer.
I am a business owner.
I'm a school counselor.
I am a mother.
I am a father.
I'm a student.
I am a TIP volunteer.
I am a TIP volunteer.
I'm a TIP volunteer. I am making a difference.
I am a TIP volunteer. I make a difference in the lives of others.
We are TIP volunteers. We make a difference. You can too.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up 1 finger if you're a man, women 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1/40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so one more finger if you're not very active. One finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're talking about the Trauma Intervention Program with the Executive Director, Sue Rutherford. The website, again, is tipofaz.org. We have some training coming up in September and October in the Prescott side of the mountain on September 29th, training starts. And on the Verde Valley side, it's in October on October 20th, the training starts. So we're going to talk a little bit about what kind of person it takes to be able to be a Trauma Intervention Program member, and then kind of what the training is as well. Well, let's try to get to that this segment here. Okay. So let's start with what kind of person it takes. So we'll weed everybody out, because I am not a person that could do what you do.
Yeah.
But what kind of person does it take, Sue, to become a Trauma Intervention Program member?
Well, there's a few things. First of all, it has to be a caring person, obviously, but not everybody can do this. Like you mentioned, it's probably, this is more difficult. This is more difficult than the work I did as a nurse. Because you're there with somebody on their worst day, and to be able to give your all and to be able to handle that is tough. It's somebody who's caring. We don't have to have professionals, but about 50% of our volunteers have some professional background, counseling, therapy, nurses, something like that. But that's not a requirement, and it's not necessary. We can train anybody to do it, but is it the right fit for them is the real issue. Can they be with somebody on their worst day? Can they deal with that? A lot of our volunteers have had a tragedy in their life, and they might have had a TIP volunteer, and they think, I could do this for others, or others had a tragedy and nobody was there for them, and they don't want people to be alone.
Okay, so a lot of them probably can relate to some of what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's somebody's worst day? When you're rolling up on something like that, what kind of a worst day are we talking about here?
Usually their loved one has just died, probably within the hour that we've arrived. So it's they woke up, found their husband dead next to them. Their child has died. Their teen has committed suicide. Whatever it is, it's usually their worst day. Yeah. Yeah.
So that takes care of that. So you've obviously got to be. You got to be a pretty understanding person and be able to listen to what they're saying.
Yes, you have to be very flexible too, because they take the lead, and what your client does is how you react and how you handle the situation. So you have to be very caring, you have to be flexible, you have to not have any grudges against law enforcement, etc. Because we're working as a team. You have to, of course, you have to pass background checks, and we do a lot of background check on people. You have to be calm. I always say, because I can be out there and having a lot of fun, but your TIP personality goes into it. You have to lower it. You have to be relaxed. It's like responding to an emergency. When I used to work as a nurse, the worse it was, the calmer I was. And that's kind of how you have to be as a TIP volunteer. If it's really bad, you got to lower it down, take a deep breath, and just so you can think clearly.
I guess you being excited doesn't help.
Right.
Somebody who's already really
it makes
out.
it worse. Yeah. No.
So let's talk about the training a little bit. So let's say I'm interested in being a trauma intervention program volunteer. I call you up. Is that right? Or I go on the website?
Or email, website,
okay.
Call, either way.
So it's tipofaz.org to get started with that.
Yeah.
And again, we've got some training coming up in September and October. September in the Quad City area, October in the Verde Valley. So take me through this. I sign up, I show up for the first day of class. How long do the classes go for?
Well, it's several days and a weekend and so on. The first night is always a Thursday night, and it's orientation. We're going to talk about here's what's involved and here's what it's like, so that they can kind of get an idea, do I want to do this or do I not?
So kind of like we're doing right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
but more detailed.
More detailed.
And then the second night we'll talk about, and it starts at a 6 p.m. So it'll start on a Thursday, 6 p.m. And then the next Friday evening, and then all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And on those other 3 times, we'll work on what they are experiencing, what it's like, and then what you do, what you say, what you don't say, how you position yourself, exactly the details of that. Then the rest of the training mostly are evenings, and we have law enforcement who comes in to say, here's how we work, here's what we expect out of you.
Okay, that's interesting.
So they have to know a little bit about a lot of agencies of volunteers. So they'll hear from the funeral homes, from medical examiner, the law enforcement, the hospital, the fire, so that they understand how the system works, and then they can be a better advocate for their client. And then we also do continuing education each month, so there's a monthly meeting. On the Verde Valley side, it's the first Wednesday of each month, and it's 6 to 9 p.m. And we have speakers who come in constantly, so that they have to know all the resources in the county also.
Yeah, I imagine it takes a while. I'm surprised you can fit all that in just 3.5 days.
Well, it's not. That just the 3.5 days is just what to say, what not to say. And then we have another 5 days of the agencies coming in,
Okay,
how to work. So it covers a couple weeks that it takes to get through the whole thing.
Okay.
And then, of course, policy and procedures a whole day, which you can and cannot do when you're out there. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, there's probably a lot to absorb, I would imagine. It's a touchy situation you're going to be in. It's a sensitive situation you're going to be in.
And we want to make sure that they feel comfortable when they first go out, that they feel they know it. And we always say it will come to you. It can be very overwhelming, but it will come to them when they go there.
Now, I imagine my first time out, that I'm going to be called out, I'm going to have somebody like Sue with me, or
yes and
a backup
no.
person. Okay,
Only
maybe not.
if they want it. But if you let's say you were a volunteer and you went out the first time, and you're with me, I'm there to watch, to be there as your backup. You're going to be doing it, because if you're always watching me, you'll never jump in with your feet. So we always say, trust your training, you can do it, we'll be there as backup.
Okay.
Occasionally we have 2 volunteers who go out. Usually it's 1, depending on the situation, and it depends on what the agency tells us. Sometimes they'll say, we need 3 volunteers, we've got a big incident, we need this, we need that.
Okay, that would make sense. A large group of people or something going on, right?
You take, you get a large type of call, a large incident, then we need a lot of volunteers, and we can usually get them within an hour. We can have quite a few people there.
We've seen those happen lately too.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take another break. Okay, the website again is tipofaz.org for the Trauma Intervention Program. Stick around. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
This was me. And Mom and Dad. And my big brother Alex. And Jack. And this was the day that I learned that sandals get their name from sand. That jellyfish aren't made of jelly. That stars don't just come from the sky. That the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget that I was sick. And it changed everything. This was my wish.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education. I dare you to be somebody important. Like be a teacher. Or a reality TV star. I dare you to stand up here. To call the shots. To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher. Think you can change my life? Make me excited about science like you? Have a career that really means something? Then do it. I dare you.
Welcome back to Countywide, talking trauma intervention program with Sue Rutherford, their executive director. The website again is tipofaz.org. A couple of questions that came in while we were on the break. One is, you mentioned that during the training you teach people what they should and shouldn't say. So I think a lot of folks out there, including myself, was what are some of the things we should and shouldn't say?
Well, one of the basics I think that a lot of people know is, for saying, is I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry for what they're going through. And you don't even have to add what you're sorry about. You can just say, I'm sorry. A big one for not saying, and it's not really specific for words, though we have quite a few, but to me the biggest thing is don't bring up anything about yourself. So when you're with somebody, and let's say I'm with somebody whose father died, I'm not going to talk about when my father died. You should never really do that, because this is about them, it's not about you. And you take away from them when you talk about yourself. This is all about them. So
I think one of the big things is, why did this happen to me?
Mm-hmm. And that's usually a rhetorical question when they say, why did this happen to me? So I wait to see, is it rhetorical? Are they just saying the question and they're just wondering? But if let's say you're in the hospital and they want to know why, then I'm going to get the doctor or the nurse there.
Okay. All right. And then monthly commitment.
Yes, volunteers must commit to 3 12-hour shifts a month. And because we're available 24/7, and our shifts are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So they either do days, nights, weekends, weekdays. They pick their shifts, and they just have to be ready during that 12 hours. Now we have some volunteers that travel. They may be gone for the month. Not a big deal with us. They can do their shifts. They can do extra before or after to make up for it.
Okay. Do you have enough volunteers?
We never have enough because we get busier and busier.
I hear that so often.
I
We
know,
never have enough
that's it.
volunteers.
Yeah.
Of course not. Right. So how many do you have right now? Do you get a number?
For both chapters, I think we're at 55 to 60, somewhere in between there. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have enough to cover the schedule, but we get busy.
But people get sick.
Yes.
People go on vacation.
Go on vacation, that's right.
Some people need a break.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay, so you can use more.
Yeah, we can use more. And we do 2 trainings a year. So that's it. Just twice a year we do this, because it's quite a commitment for people to go through, and it's not something you just throw together.
Certainly not something you take lightly either. So we've got a training coming up in the Quad City area on September 29th.
Yep.
One in the Verde Valley, and the October 20th, that one starts. And you said it lasts a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Off and on.
They will be on the schedule and ready to go out in November.
In November.
They'll graduate the first Wednesday of November.
Okay. All right. And then ready to go for the holiday season.
Yep.
Oh boy. Okay. So again, it's tipofaz.org, tipofaz.org. Sue Rutherford, thanks for coming in.
Okay, thank you.
It's always good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And that's today's Countywide. Thanks for watching and listening, and we will talk to you again next time.